Hi there, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new here. Today is going to be such an exciting video, because as a lot of you may know, Sunrise on the Reaping recently came out. And I'm actually filming this right after I have finished Sunrise on the Reaping last night. But when I went to the bookstore, I saw Sunrise on the Reaping laying there and I just had to buy it. But right then and there, I figured, why not also buy the deluxe editions of the Hunger Games series? Can you believe that I actually didn't own copies of the Hunger Games? I read the Hunger Games when I was about 14 years old and I only read the Dutch editions that my mom still has. But I never had my own editions. It has been over 10 years since I last read them. And I actually never read The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. So what better time than read the entire series because Sunrise on the Reaping just came out. Like I said, I just finished Sunrise on the Reaping. And I have no words. I will tell you a little bit more about it in this video later on. And I also have a video that is specifically about Sunrise on the Reaping if you're interested. But I mean, just look at it. I think it is so beautiful. Just look at the cover. I am in love. But like I just told you, I am going to read the entire Hunger Games series in this video. Starting with The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. I am so incredibly excited about this. I mean, just look at these editions. They are so beautiful. I am a sucker for foiling and anything that shines and I just love it so much. And look at the sprayed edges. I don't think I own a single book with sprayed edges and now I own 4. I just think these editions are so incredibly beautiful. So we have The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, The Hunger Games, Catching Fire, my personal favorite, and Mockingjay. I just think these editions are so incredibly beautiful and I can't wait to read all of them again as an adult. But like I said, I'm going to start with The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes and I just can't wait. So let's get into reading. I will see you again when I read a little more of it and I have some updates. Hi friends, I have been reading, of course, a little bit more of The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. To be honest, I think it is really difficult to read this book, not because of the contents, but like I said, I think it is so beautiful and there's foiling on the cover. And I don't know if this ever happened to you, but I am so scared to hold it in certain places because I'm scared that it'll rub off. Has that ever happened to you? You know what, let me get an example because I have a book where this happened so I can show you what I mean. I am back. This is what I meant. So this also has beautiful foiling, like you can see, but because I was holding it, you can see that it's kind of rubbed off in some places. It was all really beautiful, foiled, but everything is rubbing off. And this is just a normal copy, so it didn't... Did I mind? Yeah, I absolutely did, but I didn't really like the book, so it's not that bad. But these editions are some of my favorite editions ever, and I'm so scared to accidentally ruin them, so... If you see me reading these in the most impossible angles and in really weird ways, then you know why. I am just definitely scared to ruin them. Yes, I am the person that will read like this to not break the spine. But luckily for me, this one is actually extremely floppy. So I can read this maybe normally. I don't know. But anyway, I don't even think I told you what this book is about. But this book is about Coriolanus Snow. who grows up to be the president, President Snow in the rest of the series. He is actually kind of like the overarching villain in the entire series. And in this book we follow him during the 10th Hunger Games, where he is still in school. He is 18 and he is the mentor to one of the tributes. He actually gets paired with the female tribute from District 12. To be honest, that is all I can really tell you. I do know that we follow him and we will kind of see how he turns out to be the villain, so kind of a villain origin story, I guess. As you can probably see, I read quite a lot of it so far actually. I am on page 157, which is actually the start of part 2. In the first part we actually just follow Snow and how he goes through life and life at the academy. We see this year's reaping and of course we see Snow gets assigned his tribute, named Lucy Gray. And what I also think is really interesting is that we kind of follow and see how the games are being made, because this is only the 10th Hunger Games. So we kind of see what they look like back then, and it kind of slowly turns into what we know them to look like now. Or in the original trilogy, at least. For example, I think this is the first year that they actually start mentoring the tributes, because before that they were just thrown into the arena. But this is actually the first year that actual people are going to mentor these tributes. And the Capitol also wasn't betting on them yet. They actually didn't really like to see the games at all, which is really different in the original trilogy. Because right here, like I said, we are 10 years into the Hunger Games. And the Hunger Games were actually instated because the Capitol was at war with the districts. But the Capitol won, and their answer for this rebellion was to punish the districts with the Hunger Games. So every year the districts have to send 2 people between the ages of 12 and 18 to the Hunger Games. 1 female and 1 male tribute. But because this is only the 10th year and they haven't really figured out how to do this yet, people don't really like to watch it. So, like I said, they're just thrown into the arena. The arena isn't that special and they just get weapons and are supposed to kill each other. And we of course know that in the original trilogy it is way more of a spectacle and it's actually shown everywhere in all of Panem. So I really like seeing that this was kind of the start and how it actually evolved in being what we know today. I know that kind of sounds sick and that is actually like the point of the book, like why we want to see these kids suffer, but I just really think it's interesting. Like I said, they aren't betting on the games yet, and this also means that they don't really have sponsors yet. But that is going to change in these games, I think. Because in this story we slowly see these things come to be. Like people come up with the ideas and they are slowly transitioning into the actual Hunger Games. As I said, I'm about 160 pages in and so far we haven't seen the games yet. But I think we are going to see that in part 2. Or at least I kind of hope so. I personally think that following someone who is a part of the Capitol and is a mentor is actually really interesting. Because of course in all of the other books we see one of the tributes from the districts. And this is another perspective which I really think is so interesting. I am definitely really interested to keep on reading and find out what happens next. I have seen the movie once. So I think I get the gist of what is going to happen for the most part. But I'm curious to see if they are the same or a little different maybe. So far I think they have been pretty similar, but let us continue. Since I am really enjoying this so far, I think it is really interesting. So I will see you later, hopefully with an update. Hi friends, of course I am a little further into the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. I actually believe I just finished part 2, so I'm on part 3 right now. And I think it is so interesting to see Snow paint Dr. Gall to be the villain, while he becomes the same, maybe even worse. He starts out as a fairly normal character, but he slowly turns toward morally grey, or maybe even going towards evil. We see this in his thoughts, but maybe mostly in his jealousy and possessiveness of Lucy. He wants to help his reputation, but to make himself feel better and not seem like the villain, he convinces him that he cares about her. I love following the villain and I think it's so interesting to see him justifying his own actions while slowly turning more evil. I love it, I think it's really intriguing. This part actually took place in the games, and I think it is so interesting. But I do have to say that this came in pretty late into the book and the story. I know this book isn't necessarily about the games and it is more about Snow, but I still would have liked to see a little more of it. In this part, one of Snow's fellow mentors goes into the arena and Snow is the only person who is able to get them out. This part was so nerve-wracking, even though I have watched the movie and I think I already knew what was going to happen, but I was still on the edge of my seat. Like I said, in this book we see a little more about how the Hunger Games were created, and I love seeing how the Muzz were created by Dr. Gall, and the snakes being the very first. I just love a backstory, and this one does not disappoint so far. Of course, the part in the arena is so interesting and extremely fast-paced. I can't get enough of it, which is problematic, but it's the truth. I kept on reading and was on the edge of my seat the entire time. I actually think I might have finished the entire part in the arena all at once. This might be a bit of a spoiler, but the way Lucy wins is really smart, and I think they show it a little bit differently in the movie to make it a little more showy. But the way it happens in the book feels so clever and real. I really like that, to be honest. I do know that we follow Snow a little after the games too, and I think I might be on that part right now, part 3. So I'm really curious to see what I will think about that. Also, I feel really bad for Sejanus. Even though Coriolanus is trying to make him out to be weak or one of the bad guys, he might be the only sane and decent person here. But he gets rejected by everyone and I just feel really bad for him. But we will continue with part 3 right now and I will get back to you when I have an update. Welcome back! As you probably saw, I started part 3 of the Battle of Songbirds and Snakes, and this part takes place in District 12 after Lucy Gray won the games. This part is definitely a little more slow paced, but I'm still enjoying it. And I still think it's really interesting that we follow Snow while his thoughts just become worse and worse. I think it's evident that he doesn't love Lucy Gray because he keeps saying that she belongs to him in a really weird and possessive way. He always thinks of her as his property. He is not in love with him, although I truly think that he thinks he is. I love that the themes are on surface level and I just really like to dissect everything a little bit. But I do hope we will pick up the pace now since it's getting a tad bit slow. But like I said, Snow is just becoming more and more evil. The way he is trying to justify his own actions just shows how far gone he is. He just did something so cruel and downright evil, I don't understand how anyone can defend him. Although I think a lot of people defend him just because Tom Blythe plays him in the movies. Something I'm also really enjoying is that it's evident that Snow hates Mockingjays because it represents the way that the districts are different from the capital. He thinks the capital has a right to control the districts, while the districts only want to be free. And the Mockingjays exist because the Jabberjays got free from the capital and created something new. The Mockingjays are free and can be controlled by the capital and he hates it. That was really specific, but I think it is a beautiful theme and I just love dissecting those. Overall, I'm really enjoying it, but part 3 is definitely a little slower than the rest, like I said before. It is less action-packed and more political, I guess you could say, which isn't my favorite. But I do like that every choice Snow makes leads to consequences and we see those consequences play out. I personally really enjoyed it. I only have a couple of chapters left, so I will finish it and get back to you with my final thoughts about the book.
It's the things we love most that destroy us.
Well, I finished the book and this man is seriously evil. I actually really like the ending. When I first watched the movie, I didn't really understand it, but now I definitely do. Coriolanus turned into a downright villain so quickly into the last chapter, and I absolutely loved it. It was really interesting to be in the mind of a character that thinks so differently from myself. Someone whose mind is just so evil. The last chapter and epilogue actually made me kind of sick, but it was really interesting to see where his conniving nature began. We see it throughout the entire book, but I think mostly in the last part of the book. I don't like his character at all, but I definitely think that makes sense. I did like seeing the way he thinks and just how wrong he is, but him obviously thinking that he is right. And it is scary to think about the fact that there probably are actual people who might think like him. He was so jealous and possessed of Lucy Grape, the way he just switched in the last chapter was so interesting to see, but also kind of scary. Overall, I really liked it, but I'm also really glad that I finished it. It was really interesting, but just a tad bit slow at times. And as stupid as it is, I just really love the games in the arena, and that isn't as big in this one. Which I completely get was the point, but I did like Sunrise on the Reaping more. Speaking of Sunrise on the Reaping. In the beginning of the video, I already told you that I finished this one, so I'm not going to talk in depth about it. If you do want to know more of my in-depth thoughts about this book, then definitely check out this video. In this video, I tell you everything about what I thought about the book, and I don't want to spoil you, but I gave it 5 stars. I normally don't really physically react to books. Well, apart from crying. But I guessed out loud so many times while reading this. This book actually made me realize how sick and twisted the games actually are. I love this book so much, and it definitely made me feel like I was 14 again and reading this series for the first time. I even went to a book club where we talked about this book for hours, and I had such an amazing time. This book club was organized in my favorite bookstore, A Lot of Books, which I talk about in a different video. And it was organized by Leonie, who, if you didn't know, is the Book Leo here on YouTube. I love meeting her, she was so sweet and kind and even nicer in person. I had an amazing time and I would definitely love to do it again. But as for the book, I definitely liked it more than The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Yeah, why don't we actually do a ranking of all the books as we go along? So now the ranking would be, in last place, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, which I actually give a 4 stars, I think, because I don't think I gave you my rating yet, but I would say 4 stars. So in last place, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, and for now in first place, Sunrise on the Reaping. I'm so curious to see what my final ranking will be, because Catching Fire used to be my favorite. So let's see. But of course we have to read The Hunger Games first. So let's continue. Welcome back. As you saw, I started The Hunger Games and I have read so much already that I'm about halfway through right now. For those of you who don't know, The Hunger Games is this dystopian world where we see a fictional version of North America, which is now divided into districts and ruled by the capital. 74 years ago the districts rebelled, but the capital won, and the Hunger Games were created as a punishment to gain control over the 12 districts. The Hunger Games are an annual televised event in which Participants, who are called tributes, have to fight to the death until there is only one survivor. These tributes consist of 2 children, 1 male and 1 female from each district between the ages of 12 and 18. So there are a total of 24 tributes, so 2 tributes from each district, which are picked at random every single year. I hope you can follow what I just said, because in my head that didn't make any sense. So far, I have to say I just feel 14 again. This book is just such a comfort read for me. I'll try to keep this review as spoiler free as possible, but as soon as we talk about the rest of the series, there will be spoilers. I don't think there'll be big spoilers, but if you don't want any spoilers whatsoever, then I would advise you to first read the books and then come back to this video. So for those people, thank you so much for watching this far. I hope you have an amazing reading experience and I'll see you after. For those of you who are still here, you guys are my favorites. No, I'm kidding. But let's talk about this book. Like I said, this is just such a comfort read to me. And this book is so good so far. I love to see how accurate the movie is to the book. I already knew a lot of what was going to happen, but this book goes so much more in depth and gives you so much more background stories and information. I do like Katniss as a main character, but I think she is just awful to Peeta. And I do get that she doesn't want to get attached because only one of them can win. But girl, you can be nice once in a while. To be honest, I have never believed the romance between Katniss and Peeta. And so far, that hasn't changed. I also do have to say that there were some parts that I didn't remember. And some differences to the movie which are actually crazy to me. Like Madge, she is one of Katniss's only friends and the mayor's daughter. And in the books, she is actually the person who gives Katniss her Mockingjay pin. Which is really weird to me, because in the movies, she doesn't even exist, so someone else has to give it in the movies. But I am loving it so much. Like I said, I am just flying through it. It has been so long since I read a book this quickly, and all I just want to do is keep reading. So I definitely will. So sorry for the smallish update, but I am going to continue reading and we'll most likely see each other when I finish it. Well, I finished the Hunger Games, and every single part of the Hunger Games is just so enthralling to me. From the chariot rides to the interviews, the training sequences and the rankings. I just love it so much, and I know that it sounds sick, but I can't get enough of it. I think I'd have to say that the part in the arena is probably my favorite, since we see how smart Katniss is and how she goes about surviving. Speaking about this, a lot of characters die in a different way in the books, and even in a different order. And we also see a lot more of Trash, which I really like because I really like this character in the books and I didn't really know him in the movies. But there was one death that was way more brutal in the books than in the movies. I don't think this is a spoiler because obviously there can only be one winner, so I am talking about Cato's death. In the movie it's really quick, but in the book it gets dragged out for hours since he's wearing armor, and it actually kind of made me sick a little bit. And this might be a little spoiler because it doesn't happen in the movie, but I did not remember that Katniss goes deaf in one ear while blowing up the supplies. And I certainly did not remember Peeta losing his leg. I am pretty sure that doesn't happen in the movies, and I'm actually really curious to see why they chose not to show that in the movies. Since I think it's actually a pretty big part of who Peeta becomes, and what scars he has from Hunger Games. Speaking about scars, seeing Haymitch as an adult puts him in a completely different light after reading Sunrise on the Reaping, and it definitely makes me appreciate him a little more. Even though I already liked him quite a lot. But the Easter eggs from Sunrise on the Reaping and A Battle of Songbirds and Snakes puts everything in a different light and completely changes the reading experience, which I love quite a lot. I can't wait to see what Catching Fire will be like, knowing everything and seeing Haymitch have to deal with everything. I am so glad that I decided to pick these books up again, because it has definitely given me a newfound love for this series that I've loved ever since I was young. And I definitely still think that the series holds up even as an adult. I think I might like it even more than when I was 14. If that's even possible. Oh, and my rating is 5 stars. No one's surprised. But of course I'm going to have to rank them now. And I think my ranking right now would be in last place The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, in second place The Hunger Games, and in first place Sunrise on the Reaping. I love it so much and I'm having such a great time reading these books. Like I said, I can't wait to read the rest after reading Sunrise on the Reaping. So let's continue to what used to be my childhood favorite, Catching Fire, and let's see if it's still my number one. Hello! As you probably saw, I started Catching Fire, the second book in the trilogy. Like I said, I am terrified to hold these books, because they are so pretty and I'm so scared that I'm going to ruin them. So if you see me holding it in a very weird way, we talked about this, which you probably already saw that in a couple of other clips. So yeah, just thought I should mention it again. But you know what? Let me tell you a little bit about this book. For some reason, I always think that everyone knows what this book is about, because I think a lot of us read the books when we were younger and I think a lot of us watched the movies. But just in case you don't know or need a little reminder, a little refresher, this is the second book in the series and we talk about what happened after the first games. And how Katniss and Peeta are dealing with what happened in the first book. And of course, this year they will have to mentor the new tributes. But this year is also the 75th Hunger Games, or the second Quarter Quell, which has some additional rules. But like I said, I'm about halfway through the book and the first part is a lot longer than I thought, which I really don't mind because I really like seeing the aftermath of what happened in the first book. But I didn't remember a lot of it because there's also some things that happen which never get mentioned in the movies, so I didn't really remember it. But there's like this whole part where Katniss goes into the woods with the lake and there she sees some District 8 refugees and she helps them get by and teaches them how to hunt and stuff like that. And they are called Bonnie and Twill, I believe, but they were never mentioned in the movies. So I forgot about them for a little second because of course I have read the book before. So when I was reading it, it definitely jogged my memory. And that is so interesting to me that they decided not to put that in the movies, because this is also the first time that we get to hear about District 13. So now I'm actually really curious how we see that in the movie. But yeah, I don't know. I think that was really interesting actually. Just seeing them live their lives outside of the games. But there's also something else that I didn't really remember, because we also get to see Haymitch's games in this book, which are the 50th Hunger Games and the second Quarter Quell. And of course in this Quarter Quell they had twice as many tributes as they have in the normal games. And of course Haymitch won in this one. But what is so interesting to me is that, like, I would say about 80% of the entire plot is told in this book. Like who Haymitch's allies were, how they died, what the arena looked like, and of course how Haymitch won. Of course we missed some information and stuff, but some plot twists that happen in Sunrise on the Reaping are actually already told in this book. So they weren't really plot twists if you read this before. So I'm actually really glad that I didn't reread this before going into that one, because then a lot of the plot would have been spoiled already. And this way around, I didn't really remember a lot of it except how he won. So I think that experience was a little better, but maybe it's also really cool to read this before and then see all the little Easter eggs and stuff. Could also be fun, but I'm really glad that I did it this way. Like I said, I'm terrified to hold this, so maybe I should just put it down, you know, for now. You can still see it laying here, so maybe that's also an option. But I think it is really cool that they go through some previous games to see how those victors won and stuff like that. I think that was so interesting and I would love to see a lot more of these games. But of course we already got Haymitch's games and I could not be more happy. But talking about Haymitch, there was something so emotional because of course they were watching his games and then Haymitch comes by and he says something that made me so emotional, especially after reading Sunrise on the Reaping. Just the way he reacts is really sad. And of course, I really enjoyed it. But apart from that, I have to talk to you about something really controversial. Because when I was younger, I was Team Gale. I know it's bad. And I think it was probably brought on by the fact that Liam Hemsworth plays Gale in the movies. And I do have to say that on this reread, I have a newfound appreciation of Peeta. He is definitely the better choice, and he is so in love with Katniss. I just think that Katniss does not feel the same way about him, and it's so sad. He deserves so much better because I just do not believe that Katniss loves him in that way. There is a part in the book where she literally says that she chooses Gale, but that the games get in the way. Maybe I will change my mind in the rest of the series. I really hope I do. But for now, I actually see more chemistry between Katniss and Gale. Even though Gale is really jealous and is really unreasonable at times. But like I said, I am about halfway through and they are now on the train to the capital after they are reaped. Because if you don't remember, since this year is the third quarter quell, there are some additional rules. And the rules from this year is that the tributors are going to get reaped from the existing pool of victors. And I didn't think that was a spoiler, but it is like literally revealed about a chapter before this. Which I thought was crazy, because I thought a lot of this book happens in the arena, or you know, the arena is a great part of it, but apparently not, I don't think. But right now they are watching previous games together to learn a little bit about the other victors and the other quarter quells. So we'll now probably meet the other victors, and I think for long we will see the arena. And I am really curious, because I already know the movie and I know that this was my favorite book when I was younger, but I'm so curious to see if it still is. But like I said, I'm really curious and I will check with you when I read a little more, or probably when I finish it, because I am flying through this. Anyway, we will see each other in a bit. Hi friends, I finished the book and I loved it so much. We get so much world building in this one because we see a lot more about the capital and the other games and the victors, and I really loved that a lot. This builds so much on lore and background, which still makes it one of my favorites. And probably to no one's surprise, the part in the arena was definitely my favorite part. Especially this arena is so interesting to me. I remember reading about this when I was 14 and having my mind blown when I finally figured out what the arena is. I already told you there would be small spoilers from here, so I am going to talk about it. I absolutely love that the arena is a clock and that Wire has found this out, even though she seems a little bit crazy. Even while losing her mind, she might be the smartest person here, and I just love that so much. I just think it is so interesting that every segment in this arena stands for a part of a clock, and that segment will be activated at that time. I did want to know what was going on in every segment though, but that might just be me. But I even looked it up and couldn't find it, unfortunately. But I still love it so much and I love all of our new characters. Yeah, and this probably comes as a surprise to no one, but I am giving this book 5 stars. This is definitely the hardest to rate for me so far. But let me get the rest of them. I think this is the hardest to rate so far, but I think I'm going to say in last place, still The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. In third place, The Hunger Games. In second place, Sunrise on the Reaping. And that would mean that I would place Catching Fire as the first one. To be honest, I don't really know if this is my ranking because I don't think I can choose between Catching Fire and Sunrise on the Reaping, but yeah. I'm just gonna have to say that nothing can beat this book for me, I fear. But there is one book left, Mockingjay. So let's see if that one can surprise us. I have a feeling it won't, since that used to be my least favorite in the trilogy. And I do remember that book the least by far. The only thing that I remember is that something that happened in that one actually shocked me when I was 14. Other than that, I just remember it's my least favorite. But maybe I've changed. So let's find out. Hi there, you probably saw me start Mockingjay. And of course in this book we follow Katniss, who is thrust into the role of the Mockingjay, a symbol for the rebellion against the Capitol. Like I said, I really didn't remember what happens in this book. There were a couple of things I remembered, but not how they happen and what leads up to them. And I'm pleasantly surprised. I thought I liked this book the least, but for some reason I am flying through it and I can't seem to put it down. I definitely love this book a lot more than I thought I did. A lot of this book takes place in District 13 and I always thought it was a little too political for me and I didn't love the claustrophobic setting, but for some reason it doesn't bother me that much this time around. Am I maturing? Seems unlikely. I think this book differs the most from the movies, and I definitely think in a good way. A lot of things that happened actually felt brand new to me, which made this book so much more fun to read. They have finally rescued Peeta and I feel so bad for him. It was so heartbreaking to watch and it's even more heartbreaking reading about it. I do have some bad news though, because I still think that Katniss fits better with Gale. A lot of times in this book, Katniss basically tells us that she would have chosen Gale if she didn't feel so guilty about Peeta. Up until this point, you cannot convince me that Katniss is in love with Peeta. Sure, she loves him, but more like you would love family or a friend in my opinion. I know that Peeta is the better option because he's more kind and just a better person overall, but Katniss, in my opinion, is more compatible with Gale. And I know this might be a controversial take, but so far, I don't think Katniss should have ended up with anyone. She doesn't deserve Peeta, and I don't think that every story needs a romance. I know, diabolical. But who knows, I might be swayed by the last part of this book and I'm so interested to see what will happen next. So let's find out. And I might even update my reading journal. But for that, we first have to read, of course. So let's finish it. And I will see you after. Well, I finished Mockingjay, and this was such a surprise to me. I actually absolutely love this book, which is crazy to me. I remember liking this book, but not loving it when I was younger. I also watched the movies once, because like I said, I liked it, but I didn't really love it. Where I have watched The Hunger Games and Catching Fire multiple times. But this book seriously blew me away, and to be honest, I cannot tell you why. I don't like political intrigue and I don't like war themes, but for some reason I love this one so much. Like I said, I absolutely flew through it. I think I only remembered about 10% of the whole plot. Like, I remember Peeta being hijacked, which is still heartbreaking. And I also remembered who dies, but almost nothing around it. I think it was so cool that the capital neighborhoods were sort of the 76th Hunger Games, like what Finnick and Katniss are saying. Actually, exactly what Finnick and Katniss were saying. I did not remember any of that. This book was simply amazing. Like, something I did not remember, that they were voting to see if they were going to do another Hunger Games for the capital children, and Katniss and Haymitch say yes. But I did remember a lot of the ending though, like how Katniss loses Prim and how Gil might be responsible. For some reason I didn't realize that Katniss almost gets burned to death. But for some reason, something that really stuck in my brain was Snow's execution and the way that Katniss killed President Coin. But I thought that that was the ending, but we actually go on after that. And I cried so hard because of the interaction between Katniss and Buttercup. You're telling me that this little cat walked all the way from District 13 to District 12 just to go looking for Prim? Oh my gosh, seriously, I am going to cry again. Then Katniss, Peeta and Haymitch writing a book about everything that happened, and then Haymitch wanting to include all of the tributes that he mentored. And the keys. Which of course has a deeper meaning after reading Sunrise on the Reaping. I bawled my eyes out, which I really didn't see coming. Like I said, I love this book so much more than I thought. And I am giving this book 5 stars too, which is such a surprise to me. But for the last time, let's see my final ranking. In last place we have The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, which I gave 4 stars. In 4th place we have... oh gosh, it's actually going to be really hard. Yeah, I would still say in 4th place Mockingjay. In 3rd place The Hunger Games. In 2nd place Sunrise on the Reaping. I keep twisting around in my seat. And in 1st place Catching Fire, who remains undefeated. So this is my final ranking, I think. The only thing I know absolutely for sure is that The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes was my least favorite, because all of the other ones I gave 5 stars to. So, yeah. But I actually had the best time reading and rereading this series and watching all the movies again. This took me back to when I was 14 and discovered this series, and it just sparked my love for reading even more. Without these books, I probably wouldn't be here, which always sounds so dramatic, but it's actually kind of true. But I really don't know what to do with my life now. I actually think I might take a few days to recover and then we'll see. But definitely let me know if you read the series and what your ranking is. I am so curious. But thank you so incredibly much for watching. I hope to see you in my next video. Have a great rest of your day. Bye!